Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome into the Knoll Road. Let's do this Week 10 overreaction time in Steelers land. I'm going to give you some reactions. You tell us overreaction or spot on. We'll start with these will be Aaron Rodgers' final 8 games of his career. Here we go.
Then to the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
All right, I'm Gavin Dawson along with New Bear. Definitely not the show I expected to be doing. Salute to Jesse Minter and the Chargers for putting together a game plan and flat out getting after the Steelers offense all 4 quarters on Sunday Night Football. New Bear, how you feeling, buddy? How we doing over there? Temperature check time. You good?
No, not at all. And this is not a week to week. Oh, they won. They're going to the Super Bowl. Oh, they lost. This whole idea comes out of one and done, comes out of the pain one feels when the Jekyll and Hyde nature of this team is really unlike anything you've seen, and that's saying something.
There is a tendency, I think, with fan bases to be like, oh, we won going to the Super Bowl, we lost, not even making the playoffs. And the truth is, usually somewhere in there in between. But overreaction or not, let's start here instead of Rodgers. Steelers aren't even close to an AFC contender.
Well, I think that is an overreaction just because of the week-to-week nature of this league and the fact that there is no super team, and you're seeing teams that you just know are better fall guilty tripping down the any given Sunday route. And, I mean, look at what the Dolphins just did. Look at – I am going to be absolutely fascinated with Joe Burrow's 21-day window open and Joe Flacco one more time, maybe his last go around. I'm going to be absolutely fascinated to see how this team responds, because this is going to set up to be the perfect quote-unquote Tomlin revenge game. But we just already had one of those against the Colts.
Yeah, it's brutal. I don't feel like what we have going here is consistent enough to call it a playoff team. I think you could easily be 3-6 right now, just the way this football team has played. I don't think their passing game is good enough. I don't think their run defense is good enough. I don't think their coverage is good enough. I think 9 games into the season, I'm thinking Steelers might make the playoffs, but I couldn't imagine them winning 2 games, and especially not 3 games that it would take to even get to the Super Bowl, considering how many ways they could get beat or beat themselves in a given weekend.
Oh, so we're just talking about overreaction. We're just talking about getting there. We're not talking about getting all the way home, right? Not Santa Clara good, but just good enough to be there and let the chips fall. Yeah, because you would say if they went every other week for the rest of the season, then it would take care of itself, because at the very least, you're the Kings of the North and you host a home playoff game. I just don't know how you expect anything other than whatever happened last week to get the opposite this week, whether it's beating the brakes off someone good or basically not showing up at all yourself.
Yeah, and I don't buy into the idea that you just get into the playoffs and let the chips fall where they may, and maybe you get a couple of breaks, right, and you can find yourself in the Super Bowl. And I really don't consider you a contender unless I'm talking about you in the context of I could see you beating multiple playoff opponents, going onto the road and having success. And that really requires top 10 offense, top 10 defense, and one of those units being top 5. And I think this is shaping up to be pretty middle of the road. Where are we? About 12th in offense, 15th, 16th in defense, something like that, halfway through a season. That would just be my eyeball guess on where this team is. So leave a comment down below. Like the video if you enjoy our content. But let's go back to Rodgers, what we had on the thumbnail. One of the worst games of his career, no doubt.
Before garbage time, it was the worst game.
Okay. And the reaction is this will be his final 8 games of his career. I'm not saying that just because he played poorly, because as a man approaching 50 myself, I know what the 40s are like. And some days you feel like you're 30. Some days you feel like you're already 50. And on those days where it lines up, you had your nutrition and your hydration and your sleep all perfect and the biorhythms and the moon, you look like an MVP candidate. It's like, holy crap, this guy still got it. But I think the reason I don't believe Aaron Rodgers is going to play anymore after this career is he just does not look like he is having any fun out there. He looks like he's afraid to get hit. And, Aaron Rodgers has become a spiritual man. I've said it for years. I don't think his heart is as a football player anymore. I think he's seeking spiritual enlightenment, and football drags him back into this toxic reactionary self. And, not to get too deep in that whole ayahuasca ball of wax over there, but I think Aaron Rodgers is resonating in that part of life a lot more than he is as a football player.
So I want to say no. I want to say it is an overreaction just because this team is going to get somewhere. This all's well that ends, because it ain't going to end well. And from a legacy perspective, they held on to all these picks. They're going to go draft the next great quarterback in Pittsburgh. And then he gets to be the guy who mentors him and Will Howard in the Battle Royale to take the place at the right hand of Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger and now Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, if he's one and done, then his career and the way he rides off into the sunset is talked / played his way out of Green Bay. Father Time is undefeated, washed. We remember him completely differently if this just ends versus going through the whole process of him being the guy on that stage, cheerleading and championing the roster into 2026, knowing the holes they would have to fill and how close I think they would think they are, that he would give it one more shot to give it everything he's got.
And I think he's going to want to take time. I don't think the Steelers are going to be keen on him taking time. Like, they're going to want an answer immediately so they can start getting ready for the draft. Free agency is a month after the Super Bowl. I don't think Aaron Rodgers wants to be the guy like Favre who's sort of dragging it out and letting people in. So, I could see him saying, I'm probably done, the Steelers moving on, and him ending up with the Vikings or something, because he has a strange fascination with completing that career story arc along with Favre. He talked about that this offseason before he joined the Steelers, and he wanted it. Minnesota just didn't want to make room for him because they have J.J. McCarthy. I could see if McCarthy doesn't play well over the next 8 games, maybe that hooks him. But I think for sure it's going to be done with the Steelers, and most likely done for his career. He just doesn't look like he's having fun that often anymore out there.
Yeah, and I hear you. And this is this is where he turns back into a pumpkin, right? Where all the Good Time Charlie stuff, all the happy hour beers and all the mentorship, and how, this is going to be a really, really, really good thing for all parties. This is where I actually think he has the opposite problem of what you were talking about on the way to 50 and in your 40s. If you're not Tom Brady, you're day to day, like, regardless of getting hit in the face by 300-pound big uglies. I think he has the opposite problem. I think what we're experiencing right now is he actually feels pretty damn good, and he feels better than he has in a long time. And behind that line, exacerbating his jumpiness, where he thinks he's still got enough juice to get out of the pocket, go run around and make plays, because he's put that on tape. And he actually danced himself into that safety, right? He's missing throws because he's off platform all the damn time. Like, Kenneth Gainwell should have won some fantasy leagues last night.
Yeah, I love this. I love this GIF. Can I produce on the fly? Maybe I should bring this up on time. But I thought this fan recreation of Aaron Rodgers is just freaking hilarious, bro. I mean, you laugh because it's accurate, it's funny, but you don't want to cry. I get it. I mean, that is kind of like the Aaron Rodgers experience, and he can still spin it and whip that thing downfield. I have no qualms at all with his arm or his physical ability to still play the game. I just think it ends ugly for everybody eventually, and I think last night was part of that chapter, maybe the game that they're going to be talking about as when you knew it was over for Aaron Rodgers.
Just if I could give you just one little more piece on this, and I'm going to hit you with maybe one last, he's now garbage time Jerry Rice, but hashtag Roman Wilson season. This is why they had to do something at the deadline. That ball to DK Metcalf is the best player available ball. That play, 88, Muth is open on the backside. He is forcing things because he doesn't trust anything. And so then when it comes back to maybe I can outlast Father Time and I am moving around better than I have in a long time, his whole thing is off platform. His head, his heart, all of it. And he's so angry because he's mad at himself, but he can't punch himself on the face on Sunday Night Football.
I love it. Let's crack a cold beer for that. Start venting. It sounds like you got an overreaction. Steelers are instantly regretting not overpaying for Jacoby Myers.
No, I think I'm talking about the Waddle. If that rumor is true, where that offer was on the table and they just wouldn't add more than a 1, and you start talking about a 1 plus a 4, 5, 6, or whatever it was they were asking. I mean, look at the ball he caught just Sunday. Look at what he's going to continue to do and outproduce, assuming any injury luck, this contract that is going to look very reasonable by the time that it's done. And one of my big points from summertime when they made the move for DK and then shipped George Pickens out of town is it's the Spider-Man meme, right? It's you still have the same problem you had when it was just George Pickens. When you go sign DK Metcalf and you send GP out of town, who's the guy who's going to run with him? And we've been talking about this for 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's what's really frustrating about it is there was an answer. Actually, there were several answers at varying degrees of what you wanted to pay and how pretty it needed to be. Like if you wanted a stopgap, if you wanted a long-term, if you wanted young, middle-aged, old, if you wanted 6'5", if you wanted 5'9", if you wanted 4'3" to 4'6", like there were so many. It was a veritable buffet of wide receiver 2s. Now everything is literally just going to get dragged out because some combination of these guys couldn't pull the trigger, and now Aaron Rodgers doesn't know what to do with himself.
Yeah, I don't know if they were a Jalen Waddle away. I think the only justification for not making that move for Waddle or Myers or somebody of that ilk is just thinking, even if we do that, we still have significant issues around this roster. We can't all fix it at once. We're in more of a long term. But I agree with you. I would have definitely done something, and I think last night was some more evidence that they needed to be aggressive instead of standing pat. You will now go back into quarterback Siberia, and you don't know when you're going to have your next signal caller.
Okay, so I'm glad you took it that far, because the only other thing I want to add to this is I actually think they already know. I think barring absolute catastrophe, meaning lose 5 in a row down the stretch or re-tear an Achilles type situation, I think they already know. I think he's already said not just where he's leaning, but that it's 85% one way or the other. And the thing that is really going to chap my ass either way is that if it would come back, if there would be a cameo like we were all so high coming out of Dublin, then you have 2 guys. Then now you're talking about Calvin Austin III and Roman Wilson auditioning to be a super slot. And now we're having a completely different conversation. If you have 2 guys and Aaron Rodgers rides off into the sunset, whether it's win, lose, or injury, then Will Howard or whoever you go trade up to draft comes in. Like, you made the choice to have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins over Penny Sewell. Like, either way, it was a win. And I'm so sick of the difference between win now and all in, because this is literally going to start all over again whenever the Cancun trips get booked.
Next reaction, the Steelers have a primetime issue. Second primetime game in a row. They've struggled defensively against the Bengals, offensively against the Chargers. Trey Essex went on the fan and pointed the finger at the coaches for not being ready. There was a lot of funny Twitter activity during the game that maybe they're just too old to play that late at night. I don't know. To me, a small sample size, 2 games. I don't see anything to indicate that prime time should be an issue for them.
Okay, but how about all these quarterbacks that are under 2-3? How about it's not just prime time, it's not Sunday night, it's not Monday, it's not short week, it's not divisional, it's not the best of the best or the worst of the worst. Like, the problems are the problems, just like the standard used to be the standard. My problem with this thing now is, what do these guys do? Like, you see Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson. You see Ben Johnson now in Chicago. You see Vrabel in New England. These guys are poking, breaking, Gronk spiking iPads. They are in dudes' faces. White Cotton and Quinnen Williams being reunited in Dallas. That's one of my favorite sideline interactions because it ends in a bear hug after they get the job done. What do these guys do? They just literally look like they're wearing Mission Impossible masks, staring at a sunset, hoping that a storm doesn't come.
Well, I think that's the big problem with the head coach that doesn't call plays or really do anything. The same thing's been said about Mike McCarthy and a number of coaches that aren't actively calling plays. And I think, for those guys, it takes a lot of getting used to. that I'm not really that active. And, I think there's a case to be made that you want your head coach calling plays one way or the other, just so he is engaged and there's a momentum and an adrenaline and an activation of him. And I guess we're moving more towards having true coordinators doing stuff so the head coach can sort of manage the game and check in on everybody. But when it goes bad and your head coach is clapping or just standing there saying a couple of words every minute or so, it doesn't look good. I think there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat as a head coach as far as what you bring to the sideline. But I think there's a lot to be said for maybe throughout the week, like bringing guys together in a meaningful way isn't happening. Who was the guy? Oh, Cam Hayward's post-game quote. He questioned their togetherness, and I think that could be the players not coming together, not being hungry enough, becoming entitled, becoming complacent in their careers, whatever it is, being focused on the money, but at some point, the best head coaches, I think, figure out a way to galvanize the guys. Sometimes, like Jimmy Johnson would say, I want everybody to hate me, and they're going to be together hating me, other than my chosen couple of superstars that, are going to be on the same page with me. But I don't know if it's Mike Tomlin doing something or not doing something on game day, but there's a lack of galvanization going on with the Steelers roster probably.
Well, my problem with it is that he then just hides behind the useless platitudes. We call them Tomlinisms. And he comes to Tuesday and he says something that Terrell Austin and Artie Smith and all the players have to parrot. And you can judge by the tone and the tenor of their voice how much they believe it or how much they're tired of hearing it. And when you win, you gloss over some of these things, and we say things like, oh, well, you want to get these bumps and bruises, and you want to get these learning opportunities in a win, but it doesn't. You might hide or sugarcoat, but it doesn't make those problems go away. And oh, by the way, Joe Flacco is coming back around. And oh, by the way, now there's a script. It doesn't matter where Jalen Ramsey is. We're going to design plays to get our guys, whatever scheme, whatever part of the tree that we like based on who we have and who you don't, or wherever you have five, and we can just go play away from him. Then, I don't know what to do if nothing happens this week. If there isn't some all-out blitz, if there isn't some trick 'em and dick 'em, if there isn't a combination of the two, if Joe Flacco doesn't come out and fall flat on his ass to the point where we're saying, okay, he had a nice run and that was all he had left in the tank, Father Time is undefeated for real, then what are we talking about what this guy does? We go back to the conversation that we had about how Terrell Austin needs to get fired so that we actually see what Tomlin can do. Because right now, it seems like he just shows up on Tuesday and reads from a Chat GPT script of things he's said over the past 18 years.
I mean, more than that, though, to me, Newbear, it's not about what he's saying it's doing. It's the fact your guys can't cover. I mean, how many throws under 2 seconds last night were going right in that hole? Like, you don't have guys. It's not Ramsey, it's not Slay, it's not Porter. Like, reaction or overreaction, this group of Steelers corners is one of the most overrated groups in franchise history.
Right. Well, and that's the thing we've been so mugged up on wide receiver 2 that we stopped to even ask the question, is DK Metcalf truly a wide receiver 1? But we also stopped talking about the defensive backfield and the guys chasing wide receivers on the other side. I mean, I mentioned it the last time we hopped in here that, we both would have really liked to see Alontae Taylor make his way up from New Orleans. But there are other guys. We talked about Asante Samuel Jr. being the last visit in Pittsburgh. Like, why aren't they at the front of that line? The lack of urgency is basically like criminal, emotional mismanagement to the fan base. And everyone's sitting here saying, I can see on the couch that some of the points Newbear's making or some of the points Dawson's making or whoever it is, whether it's the fan or Kaboli or anybody all the way to McAfee about this team and about this city, is like they're just gaslighting us every Tuesday at the podium and acting like you're not a ball knower because you don't make $20 million a year to coach a all-in $200 million defense.
Yeah, but I love what you were saying a few minutes ago about the lack of buy-in or the lack of ability to bring this thing together and the Tomlinisms, right? Because one thing Pete Carroll felt is there's only so many times I can tell my guys the same stories and go back into my back pocket and pull out that speech. And what happened is you got to get rid of all the players and bring in new players. And, the Seahawks tried that. They weren't as good as the Legion of Boom. But that GM up there, John Snyder, is damn good.
Yeah.
You move him out. You bring in the Ravens defensive coordinator. Now they look like they might be the best team in the NFC. When the players have heard it all before and they're your veterans and they're your guys and they are rolling your eyes and they're not buying in, there's a chain reaction to that. If the veterans aren't like, yeah, I'm fired up about that speech because they've heard it 8 times already, there is a chain reaction down to the role players and the young guys on that team. They sort of assume that body language and mental posture.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the components of, in every time these players hear those key words, they go, okay, what about the individual component of you as a coach? What about the collective component of this coaching staff together? And they're having little clicked up conversations about the way that this thing is presented, which is just nonsense. And then going over there and having to parrot what's being said, do the right thing because that's how they do business in this city. And, the overreaction so far, I've really tried to be more positive relative to the global landscape. I think one of the reasons that's hard to do is because of how jacked up it feels at a local level.
Okay, next reaction or overreaction. I feel like I know how you're going to react to this one already, but I do want to say the Steelers defense has kind of gotten it figured out a little bit here. I mean, I think moving Slay to free safety, kicking Chuck Clark and Juan Thornhill out of the game.
Ramsey, right? You're talking about Ramsey.
Yeah, my bad. Ramsey and Duggar as your safeties now.
Yep.
It has just changed the entire feel of what this defense is capable of. And last night, 25-10, but Justin Herbert goes for 220. They run it 31 times for 115 yards. You didn't get killed. You didn't have to lose this game due to the defense.
And a lot of it came late when they were worn down. A lot of it came late when the game got away, just like Rodgers and, garbage time Jerry Rice. And I watched that game the whole way through and I was like, you know what? This is the time for a rock fight. And when he dirted that first down ball, that should have just went, it should have just been a pitch to Warren because they were dominating. And I actually threw it up on Twitter and said, forget Aaron Rodgers, was DK hot? Who cares? You are marching up and down the field. Your line is coming off the ball. You get to the red zone. On the snap, the double teams kill the Chargers. Jaylen Warren might have scored on that play. Instead, they dirt it, and they end up with the back shoulder end of things where we're all just going to criticize and critique and go, who doesn't trust? Is it the play calling? Is it the execution? Is Rodgers just having a bad night? Is it father time? Is it all these things? And it's like, dude, just give the ball to Jaylen Warren when he's rolling.
Yeah, I would say that 100%. I think I said that to you at some point in our text chain last night. Like when you get down there inside the 10-yard line, Warren is crushing and you're like, hey, I know, let's pass it on third down and pass it on fourth down. You should be running it on third down. And then if you have to pass on fourth down, look at that. But it's funny you watch the whole game because I was like 30 minutes ahead. And I think I said it multiple times, just turn this thing off and go to bed. It only gets worse from here.
Sorry, I forgot. You said the defense is kind of has it figured out.
Yeah.
Speaking of the text stuff, we were both also talking about how does Slay end up getting hurt every week? Does Pierre actually step in, show out, earn his spot, show you something that he hasn't shown you yet? And it's like at the end of the day, the answer isn't in the building. End of the day, the answer is the 26th draft. Well, how do you win before that happens? How do you win before the whole world and the eyes of football fans everywhere, descend upon this great city? Is okay, well, there's one free agent, maybe two. There were trades. You passed on those dudes because you're thinking about future dudes. And at a certain point, I don't care how stale the message is, and I don't care how trite, players only, this, that, and the other. Somewhere in between, there has to be I'm going to do it the Kentucky basketball way from, Rick Pitino. Walter McCarty, Ron Mercer, Antoine Walker is not walking through that door. The guys in this room have to figure it out, right? If there's no Ike Taylor, Ryan Clark, Troy Polamalu coming to save you, then you guys got to do something together. You guys got to go say, hey, let me raise my hand. I have an idea. You got to figure out a way, as Tomlin might say it, from individuals to the collective, meaning going back to the staff and giving them something to say, let's do this together. Because right now, from the inside out, you don't have the dudes, and from the top down, they don't have the innovative juice.
No, and I would put the top down right at the front office, because, and we've talked about this since the summer, the idea of going for it, being all in, but still preserving the future. You know how I feel about it. It's a ridiculous idea. You were accepting your guys aren't good enough. You saw it through 8 games and you're like, well, we don't need to do anything at the trade deadline. We're fine with these guys, even though we don't have a nose tackle or a physical middle linebacker or guys that can cover. We're just going to add Kyle Duggar. We don't need to go get a real left tackle that can protect Aaron Rodgers' blind side. What you were doing, whether you know it or not, Rooney family and Omar Khan, you were engagement farming and printing hundreds of millions of dollars every calendar year. Congratulations. You've won. You have an entire fan base obsessed with your product. You don't have to actually try to win and spend money and actually put your cojones on the line. You get to just say, hey, let's have a winning season, put on a good show every Sunday, maybe win more than we lose, and literally make hundreds of millions of dollars doing it. I think so many NFL franchises are drunk on the money that they are getting. And it is very tempting for them to just let the status quo roll, because there is no negativity. There's nothing punishing you for letting it be like this. In the 80s and 90s, when a lot of these, teams were growing, you actually had to win to make money. And now you no longer have to do that.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where there's a reason you see other teams' colors end up in your stadium. There's a reason that you hear Renegade getting shouted down, and it kind of, like, everyone talks about how well the Steelers travel, but there's a malaise in town. And it's one thing, to have it be a once in a lifetime thing where, pick your favorite red that you've seen in those yellow seats. But when you see the team travel and you see a 70 or 75 or 80-20 crowd in Los Angeles, and that's the product you put on the field, and oh, by the way, back here in the city, we're waiting all day for Sunday night and we got to watch that shit. Shame on you.
Okay, next reaction or overreaction. Steelers should have drafted Jackson Dart in the first round. Where are you at with it?
No, because they wouldn't have played him. And if they played him, they wouldn't have trusted him to do what Dayball's doing. And, I talked about and teased out the concussion thing and him and the way that he plays and the way that Dayball's calling it like it's still Saturday. Like, it was going to get ugly early, and that was going to be something you're going to have to watch with him over time. I love Jackson Dart. Huge fan, really tremendous ball player. But the caveat with that is that they weren't ever going to let him play the way he needed to play. It would have been some, reasonable facsimile of Justin Fields doing what he did until you were waiting for, pocket passer du jour or next man up to trust to throw the ball in the middle of the field and do some of the things that, quite frankly, they're still not doing.
Final reaction or overreaction. Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth are the worst. These guys, man, I feel like the bottom point last night was probably when Collinsworth was talking about Rodgers and Dupree being teammates.
Oh yeah, give me some more Kentucky love. Man, are
they smoking doobies at the break? I seriously, like,
what did he say?
Not describing the action.
The Dicker Doinker, that one, that was crazy.
Totally corny. Totally corny. Tirico's the biggest nerd in sports broadcasting.
Look, and he is a nerd. He's a Syracuse guy, right? I mean, they're all nerds. Yeah. Filippone's a nerd. They're all nerds. But, like, you go through this whole thing, and that can be okay. Like, one guy can be straight, and then one guy can be wonky. Look at Madden and Summerall forever. One guy can play, and I'm not intimating by any means that Mike Tirico was actually drinking in the booth. We all know the backstory on the two more famous dudes. But, like, Collinsworth has just gotten to a point where somehow he invented a company that determines all pro awards, and he can just go on TV and say whatever the hell he wants. It's like he doesn't even go to the production meetings, and he just shows up and, yucks it up.
I'll be Matthew McConaughey for 3 hours. Yeah, man. Yeah. I think that goes to there's no downside. And Tony Romo was brilliant his first 2 seasons. Then he got $20 million a year.
Yeah, no, that's the league. The league ruined Tony Romo. They neutered him when they told him he wasn't allowed to call plays. So now Tony Romo's just doing Corona commercials, being like, I'll just be like everyone else and collect your paycheck. Romo was awesome when it first started, and people loved it. But, the WWE scripted side of it can't have that happen.
Yeah. Well, great stuff tonight, buddy. Hopefully everybody out there in Steelers land can come back around and whip up some optimism. And before too long, we'll be getting ready for the Bengals. So we'll be back in about 48 hours to start previewing that game for New Bear. I'm Dawson. Until next time, we'll see you on the No Road.